Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the E-commerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Mr. Yonah Nimmer, welcome to the E-commerce Edge podcast, brother. Great to have you along for the ride today.
Thanks, Jason. Stoked to be here, man.
It's super cool to have you along for the ride today, and you're based in the beautiful city of San Diego. I've often said many times before, I grew up in Riverside, California, Southern California, not that far away from San Diego, and I've oftentimes said that if I had to gun to my head and I had to move back to California, San Diego and Newport Beach would be two of the places I would consider. So you live in a beautiful part of the world.
I couldn't agree more, and my fingers are really tightly crossed right now that you don't have anyone pulling out a gun on you this week, but we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Living in Mexico, you never know, but no, it's a great place to live. We love living here in Mexico. And actually, funnily enough, the city we live in, Puebla City, its weather is almost identical to San Diego. We're not on the coast, but we're at like 2,000 meters of elevation here in Puebla City. And so we don't get the heat and the humidity that like the coastal towns in Mexico get. So it ranges between 15 and 35 C year round. So very so San Diego in that regard. We just don't get the onshore breeze like you do.
I live near the beach, so I'm all about the breeze, but sounds like you live in a beautiful place too.
It is, but listen, let's talk about the Growth Lab. You are the founder at the Growth Lab, specializing in market. You're effectively an agency that specializes in marketplaces. But tell us how you got into this wonderful world of marketplace strategy.
Yeah, initially I started off as a seller. I'm terrible at keeping track of time, but probably now, like 8 years ago, me and one of my buddies met up and we decided to learn to launch on Amazon. And we ended up starting our own brand, scaling it up to doing $3 million+, which at that point in time, I thought, oh my God, we have a massive business. We're crushing it. Flash forward at the Growth Lab, we also have a subsidiary called the Amazon Growth Lab, where we work with brands that are doing $60 million a year, $200 million a year. And I realized how small of a player I was, which is a very humbling experience. But yeah, essentially, my journey started off as a seller on Amazon. And over time, opportunities fell on my lap where I ended up going to the agency side.
I love it. I love it. As somebody who was now a consultant, but spent many years running and building agencies and had a lot of experience in agencies, I respect anybody that decides to start an agency, build a team, do client services. It's hard work, but it's very rewarding work. And you guys don't just work with Amazon now. You're working with Amazon, TikTok, Walmart, and I'm guessing other marketplaces that your customers may want to be on, especially if they're in B2B. They might be on Faire, they might be on Jor, they might be on other B2B specific marketplaces as well. So do you work in the areas that your clients need you to work, or have you really doubled and tripled down on Amazon, TikTok, Walmart, and that's where we are?
Those three, and then also Target, we set our lanes. At the end of the day, it's like, when it comes to e-commerce, nothing's going to make as much revenue as Amazon, right? So if a client comes to us, oftentimes, for example, they'll say, hey, we want to launch on Walmart, right? So let's say we have a client that comes to us and they're doing $10 million a year on Amazon. It sounds very sexy to decide, hey, we want to go on Walmart, we want to go on Target, we want to go on Wayfair, we want to go on eBay. But the question really comes down to, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? So if you're a small player and you're doing $3 million a year, like at one point in time, that's where I was, a small player, essentially, you get to ask yourself, where am I going to get more ROI? By going on Wayfair and eBay, or by going on the German marketplace within Amazon? Maybe it's not as cool that suddenly I'm not going to a new marketplace, but every business has their own priorities. But really, you need to ask yourself, what's your goal? Are we just looking for brand awareness right now? Or are we looking, hey, for every single dollar that we're spending, we're trying to get the highest ROI? So obviously, if you're selling on TikTok or if you're selling on Amazon, the benefits vary immensely. So the first question we always ask a client is, everyone wants to be on every marketplace, but why? What's your intention? So that we can really get an understanding of, is your strategy correct, or do we want to guide you in a different direction?
And how do you help these brands, businesses, founders? Oftentimes they're still in startup mode. I'm guessing maybe they've seen some initial traction on Amazon, maybe just Amazon US, maybe Amazon US, CA, and MX to start off with. Hit the trifecta of North American Amazon marketplaces. I buy a ton off of Amazon.com.mx. So I know how popular Amazon here is in Mexico. It's the one of the top 3 marketplaces here in Mexico, followed by Mercado Libre and Coppel. Marketplaces are massive down here in Mexico, and it largely comes down to the trust factor of marketplaces. D2C brands, especially if they're not that well known, or even if they're just a retail aggregator brand and they have a Shopify web store, oftentimes they aren't trusted because if they're not well known, it's like, am I going to get my stuff if I order that stuff off you? Whereas if I don't get my stuff and I've ordered off of Amazon, they're going to refund me. And so that's the beauty of the trust factor of these large global or at least regional marketplaces. They've built the trust, they have the traffic, they have the demand, and so they have the secret ingredients, the secret sauce to make sure that they will always have demand, right? Steady stream of demand. And now oftentimes that's the whole challenge of marketplaces. How can I grow my marketplace in a way that sees supply grow at roughly the same rate as demand, or maybe just a little bit ahead of demand, to where when people come to my marketplace, they can actually get the stuff that they want and get it quickly and get it easily and get it at a decent price. So when you're starting to have these initial discussions with the brands that you work with, are you, I'm guessing that, do most of the time, are they already seeing some success on Amazon, or are they coming to you and maybe they've got a D2C website and they're going, hey, we've heard about this Amazon thing, but we have no idea where to start. We want to make sure we start off on the right foot. We want to make sure we don't get any infractions. We want to make sure we don't get any penalties. Maybe we want to do FBA. Maybe we want to do all these things on Amazon, but we really don't know how to do that, how to do it right, how to start our account in a really good place. Maybe we don't even know how to decide where across the FBA network we're going to place inventory so we can get it to our customers fast, get some great reviews out of the gate. Are you dealing mostly with startups or people that already have traction and they want to go to the next level?
Yeah, good question. So I would say there's two different brackets of the business, right? There's enterprise clients, and then there's also small, medium-sized clients. So for enterprise clients, for example, we work with Skechers, right? We work with Brooklinen, we work with Jacuzzi. These are all clients where they have a large internal team that is just dedicated to marketplaces, right? They'll have an Amazon team. So it's a very different conversation we're having there than someone who's just a founder that's doing everything on their own, that has an invention and they wanted to launch a product. I'm down to take the conversation in either direction, but I would say I could talk for 2 hours on what it's like if you're an enterprise client versus if you're a small client. For your audience specifically, what do you think is a better direction to talk about?
Look, I think my audience for the most part are not going to be that they're not going to be enterprise grade Amazon sellers. That's not what they are. They're probably going to be SMBs, somewhere between currently doing somewhere between 5 and $50 million a year across all channels. Maybe they've just started up on Amazon, or maybe they're looking at the Amazon channel, expanding to the Amazon channel because they haven't done either. Maybe they had a false start years ago and they just never came back to it. But it seems to me like there is absolutely an intimidation factor, particularly with Amazon. Maybe not with, I've never had anything to do with Walmart. I've never had anything to do with Target. I've never had anything to do with TikTok Shop yet. So I can't speak on their behalf. But most of the clients that I speak to, and I exclusively consult to B2B sellers. So they're manufacturers and distributors, but sometimes they also want to sell on marketplaces like Amazon Business because they're a B2B supplier, or they want to sell
Yep.
in Vendor Central to Amazon, and then Amazon on sells their products, or they want to sell through a marketplace like Zorro for industrial products, etc. Always when I'm speaking to them about the marketplaces that they may want to integrate with, and so therefore, what kind of stack do we need to have on the back end to be able to service that channel? They come with a voice of awe around Amazon and total paranoia and fear about doing Amazon wrong because they're afraid of getting blacklisted, penalized, shadow banned. They are really worried about, geez, if I do one thing wrong on Amazon, I could imperil my entire account on Amazon. And that's the sense I get from most merchants who are looking to sell on Amazon, is they just don't want to do it wrong.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Amazon is a complete beast where if you understand the inner workings, you can use it to your advantage. And if you don't, you'll likely fall short. So it makes sense. And it can take 3 years to understand the ins and outs of the platform. The first step is really always doing an audit, right? Whether you're launching or whether you're an existing seller, really taking a look under the hood. Ideally, we get access to your Seller Central account and we do a SWOT analysis for the next 72 hours where we have an expert dive in and figure out where can we actually move the needle, right? So initially, you're just coming in as a detective, right? So the question is, everyone has the same problem. we're not getting as much sales as we want, right? At the end of the day, everyone wants to raise revenue. And what most people talk about is PPC. They're just talking about what your ad strategy is. Because for the most part, I think for most agencies, that's a black box that founders, business owners don't really understand, where they think this is a service that I can basically pitch, that I can have them utilize my business for the next 6 years because they're not going to be able to do it without me. But the truth of the matter is, Amazon is an ecosystem, right? Just like with your health. If you were to say, I slept 8 hours last night, does that make me healthy? It's a variable. It's one element. But if you're not working out, if you're not,
Eating right.
ensuring that you're having the nutrients and minerals, it all goes to shit. Yes, it's important to have a good advertising strategy, but that is one small piece of the equation, right? So things that we look at, for example, is within Seller Central, you can look at brand analytics. Well, actually, let me ask you this. Is it helpful to like pull up a graph
Yeah,
or do most people just look at
absolutely. And I can game day it and talk through what I'm seeing here.
Okay, I love it.
While you're pulling that up, I'll just ask a question in the background. Would you encourage, because I think a lot of new Amazon sellers or relatively new Amazon sellers, they think that they have to do Amazon PPC, otherwise they just simply cannot be successful on Amazon outside of paying for the traffic to their product page or paying for the ability to be in the buy box, or without having effectively a banner ad or a display ad somewhere on the site, they're just simply not going to get the sales that they need to justify the investment in Amazon. Is
Yep.
that true now? It's the third largest ad network in the US now after Google and Meta. So it's obviously a very important marketing channel for e-commerce brands. But can you still be successful on Amazon today without doing Amazon PPC?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the most part, it is possible, but only really if you already have a lot of brand awareness. For example, if you're on TikTok and you have 20 videos that went viral and you have 40 million people that are now suddenly having their eyes on your brands, you can start to get the snowball effect and have the halo effect on Amazon, where suddenly you have a lot of branded traffic. But at the end of the day, long term, Amazon is a business. And what do you think they care about, Jason? What's their end goal?
Their end goal is more revenue for them.
Yeah, they want to make more money.
Yeah.
So essentially, if you're going to a supermarket, whatever's on the checkout aisle or is on aisle one,
Or on an
you're
end
more
cap.
likely to buy. Yeah, you're more likely to buy than if it's all the way at the back of the store next to the bathroom by the feet, right? On the bottom shelf. So Amazon will reward you with better digital shelf space if and only if you are proving to them from a data perspective that you are going to make them more money, right? So I'll share my screen for a second
Sure.
and I will walk you through a little bit of a flow chart that I think makes it a little easier for brands to understand the ins and outs of what it takes to succeed on Amazon, right? So whether you're
I love a good Miro board.
you love a flow chart, huh?
Love it.
Whether you're an existing brand or launching a brand, the tactic is slightly different. So let's talk about if you're an existing brand. The first things first is you want to go to your Seller Central account and you can look at Product Opportunity Explorer and Search Query Performance. What we care about here is we basically just care about how your click-through rate and how your conversion rate compared to the competition. So what's important about this? We essentially, first things first, need to make sure, do we have a 1% click-through rate, a 20% click-through rate? And depending on the range of what we see, we get to decide where we need to put our efforts initially. If we see, for example, you have a very low click-through rate, we now know, hey, we need to go through and we need to do consumer validation.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Ideally, we're taking an image, right? Your main image on Amazon, and we're running a survey to Amazon Prime subscribers. And we're basically asking them, let's say you're selling a dog leash. Hey, if you were looking to buy a dog leash on Amazon, which product would you click on and why? And we have your product and we have 20 other products. Now we're basically doing a heat map test in order to figure out what percentage of people are clicking on your product. Does that make sense so far, Jason?
100%. Wow. Didn't even know you could do that. I didn't even know you could send that out to Prime subscribers. Obviously, you're paying for that service, but I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah. So, what that allows you to do is, as opposed to just taking an image and throwing it up on your Amazon store, you're making a data-driven decision, right? And this is not just a one-time thing. You're going to change your image and eventually have an analytical approach of knowing your image is getting more clicks than the competition, but the competition is now going to copy you. So it's a never-ending game where ideally, quarter after quarter, you need to keep revamping and figure out, how do I get an edge from the competition?
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense.
So that's one example for a click-through rate, because when people are going to click on your item, you really have three things that will move the needle. It's either your title, your picture, or your price,
Yep.
right? Those are really the three levers that you have to play with. Once you get your click-through rate to a good place, now we need to work on your conversion rate. Now,
Actually, hang on a
what you
second.
have
Let's
to
go back
do.
to those three. So you said image, title,
Yep,
price.
yep.
For me, I usually, like when I'm getting a set of results in, because I spend an ungodly amount of money. It's embarrassing actually how much money I spend on Amazon products. But one of the things that I do, and I'm assuming that a lot of consumers do the same thing, I
Bruce?
apply two filters. I apply Prime because I'm a Prime member first, and I then click on 4 stars or above, and I filter for 4 stars or above. So it feels like
Yep.
to me those two are pretty important factors in addition to those three that you just referred to.
So what I was just talking about was click-through rate. The second is conversion rate.
Ah,
I
okay.
agree that obviously you can have filters that you utilize on the side. What we find after extensive studies is that less than 5% of Americans are actually utilizing that. So,
Like,
I'm utilizing
you mean only 5% of Americans are even utilizing the filters at all?
on their first time searching for a product. Usually, they search for a product, they scroll through, they can't find what they like, and then they start to use the filters afterwards.
Right.
But once again, now we're starting to get to a place of where we're talking about conversion rate. These are the three main things that we want to look at initially that go to click through rate.
Yes. Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
And in regards to FBA, to me, it's a baseline assumption. If you're not selling furniture and you don't have a super bulky item and you're selling something that's not a chemical that can't go into FBA, it's a baseline assumption you have to use FBA. And we tell that to all of our clients because what did we talk about before? The more money Amazon is making, the more likely they're going to push your product for organic visibility. So, yes, the Prime badge is important, but to be honest, that's a baseline assumption that we have. And it's almost when we're talking about health, I wasn't talking about the fact that you need to breathe.
Yeah. You're like, that's table stakes. You got to breathe.
Yeah, exactly. But in regards to reviews, yes. So for conversion, obviously there are other factors at play, right? So for example, we have your listing images, right? So you have 6 images in your carousel. The same concept goes there. Not only can you test that against competitors with a tech platform like PickFu, you can also split test, and on Amazon, you can run brand experiments, right? So let's say for that dog leash, we've created a design. We're just guessing that our conversion rate is good initially. But if you go into brand analytics, you can see what is my conversion rate, and you can also see what is my competitors' conversion rates, right? I can see over the last quarter for every single keyword that I want to go after, how many people searched it and how many people bought it. And with just simple division, you can understand what the average conversion rate is within the space and then compare it to your own. But you don't want to do that per product. You want to do that per keyword, right? Because the conversion rate for Labrador Retriever dog leash versus brown dog leash are going to be completely different.
Yes. And there are, and we've had PickFu on the podcast before, amazing platform vendor, and they sound like they do some amazing things. Obviously, when people come to you, they're coming to you for not only strategic advice, but then tactical advice to back that up, like some of the tactics you just referred to. Hey, here's what we check. Here's the levers that we pull. Here's the things that we change over time. Here's how we revisit this quarterly. We do all these things. Are there, and we featured actually some tech sort of Amazon analytics platforms, for lack of a better term, let's just call that the umbrella, Amazon analytics platforms that plug into your Seller Central account, because apparently, again, I've never been an Amazon seller, so I can't say good, bad, or indifferent, but apparently some of the data and some of the insights inside Seller Central aren't that easy to parse, aren't that easy to understand, aren't like, sure, you can get the data out of there and you can get it out via API. Amazon is maybe from a data visualization perspective, from an actionability perspective, from an insights perspective, is not going to be the be all end all solution for you. They're the source of the data, but you are not necessarily going to get the insights out of the data that you're looking for. So, do you recommend that your clients leverage Amazon analytics platforms that plug into your Seller Central data and start to surface some of these insights that you just referred to in those platforms? Or do you always go back to the single source of truth, which is Seller Central dashboards?
Great question. As an agency, I wish we didn't have to utilize 800 different tech platforms. The tech stack list grows every single year. So, no, we don't tell our clients you should use a third party platform, but for every step of the process, our account managers are utilizing tools like Smart Scout, Helium 10, Data Dive, Trellis, Atom 11, the list goes on and on. PickFu, we just talked about. So, no, we don't tell our clients to do it because at the end of the day, our job is to make our clients' lives as easy as possible. But these are tools that we're utilizing on a daily basis for sure.
Right, which means that you don't have to live in Seller Central. You can plug your platforms into their Seller Central account, grab the API key, and then boom, now we've got a central hub where we can start seeing some of this data, analyzing some of this data, grabbing some insights from this data, and then presenting this back to the client in a meaningful way, which is to say, hey, look, here's like our top 3 recommendations in month 1 that we think we should be executing on. I'm guessing that you offer services to either I'm guessing that your service isn't 100% done for you, but it might be a done with you type of a service, right?
When you say not 100% done for you, ideally 98% is done for you, but some things are impossible. We're not going to your manufacturer and placing the order
Yeah.
because that's a massive liability.
Yes.
We'll give you a breakdown on this is how much inventory you're going to need over the next 9 months. We're not logging into your bank account and sending the wire.
Sure.
So obviously there's always limitations. Our goal is the first 3 months of the engagement, we need your help in the sense that we don't know your brand voice. We don't know what your design preferences are, and we don't know what your goals are. Right. So for the first 3 months, it's very collaborative.
Yep.
I would say for the first 3 months, we're holding your hand throughout the process. We're educating you. Down the line, we have clients we've worked with for 2 years where we hop on a call with them once a month, but other than that, they're not really responsive in Slack.
Wow.
So it depends on the client and what their needs are and what their preference of working style is.
And how do you obviously that's great for the client and it's great for you in the sense that client becomes very sticky because they have a high level of reliance on you. They're joined at the hip with you across this journey of improving Amazon, improving Walmart, improving TikTok shop sales. But by the same token, I guess the concern is if they're not that engaged, then when you do need creative, when you do need guidance and direction or a yes no answer from them, it feels like if they are too at arm's length from any channel, regardless whether it's Amazon, D2C, any other marketplace, whatever, social selling, etc., it feels like that is can be a recipe for disaster because maybe at that point they stop respecting or appreciating the value that you bring to the table because they've never done it, right? They haven't done all those things even once themselves that you do. And so and I experienced this when I was running and building agencies, we oftentimes had a really difficult time demonstrating with concrete evidence the value that we brought to the table as an agency over time. And so clients can very easily start to take you for granted, right? They can start to say, "Hey, if we cut them off tomorrow, is our account going to be okay? Is it going to fall flat on its face if it's not constantly being optimized at least quarterly?" So how do you make sure that you are doing as many things on behalf of the client as you can to take the load off them so they don't have to go and build an internal Amazon team because they can just outsource it to you, but also demonstrate value in such a way that they don't go, well, geez, why don't we just, instead of spending, I don't know, pull a number out of my backside, 10 grand a month with you, let's build a team in house. Let's have an Amazon person in house. Because always when working, in my experience, always when you're working with a fractional agency, that they might have 3 or 4 roles that they're doing for you, but they're only doing them fractionally. So you would have to potentially hire 3, 4, 5 people to do what your agency does fractionally, but you'd have to hire those people full time to be able to deliver all that stuff in house. And so, what are the kind of conversations you're having, the reports that you're presenting? How are you presenting the value that you bring to your clients, like on a monthly basis?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think at the end of the day, to be honest, in any service, we're in a relationship business, right? So let's say you hire a plumber. Okay, so they get the job done, they fix your sink. You don't really understand the ins and outs of what's happening there. All you care about is you turn the faucet, the water's coming out now, right? You just want the end goal. Now, why do you choose to call the same plumber? Similar to what you talked about before with Amazon, there's trust. Suddenly it's okay, we worked together once and you did a good job. That's one element. But where you really create a sticky relationship is you have a connection, right? Now, suddenly they start to ask you about your family, they ask about your kids, right? They remember something about last time that you guys hung out and you talked about. You said you were going to a Dodgers game and they asked how the game was. That's where suddenly you start to feel a little bit more important. We have a customer success manager. Their full-time job is just checking in with clients and making sure they feel good, that they feel like it's a white glove experience. And at the end of the day, it's like, that is not a revenue generating role. Why do we do that? We do that because at the end of the day, we're in a service industry and relationships are what really matter.
Mm. It's
So
a retention
at a
role, not a
bare
revenue role.
minimum, totally. At a bare minimum, we need to have an hour-long conversation once a month. And the goal there is really build a connection and show our value. It doesn't need to be on a day-to-day basis because some brands, for example, some brands, if you're doing $20 million a year on your D2C store and you're just launching on Amazon and Amazon's only doing $20,000 a month, it's okay, I'm not going to put that much time and attention here.
Yes. So let's
But
outsource
we
that to an
need
expert who does.
totally.
And then maybe if it does get to $1 million a month or $2 million a month on that channel, then you might think about insourcing some of those functions. You may decide, hey, we're now at a stage of our growth. And especially if you see your growth on an Amazon or another marketplace channel going parabolic, then you might say, geez, we actually need to have some of this capability in house because we really need to know what's happening here. We really need to own this channel to a higher level than maybe what we can do via an agency. But if we think about Amazon in comparison to TikTok Shop and Walmart, what would you say are the primary differences between those three channels and the types of services you have to provide your customers around those three different channels?
Yeah, TikTok Shop is more top of funnel, right? So it's an impulse purchase. So someone going to TikTok Shop, what they're looking to do is to scroll. They're looking to zombie out. They're not looking to buy a product.
Hmm.
But suddenly they watch a video where they get interested. And maybe if you have a product that's $60 or less, and ideally is to demographic of women, suddenly they'll buy the product. And why demographic of women? That's the biggest percentage of sales that are actually coming through TikTok Shop at this moment.
Yes.
Amazon, on the other hand, is intent based, right? So if we go back to the same example, someone will search dog leash because they are going to the marketplace because they need to buy, right? When you're going to TikTok, you're not going because you need to buy something, but you may see, a video of someone walking a really cute Labrador retriever and saying, I adopted this puppy. And in the link, there's a link that you can click to that either goes to a TikTok shop page or an Amazon page where suddenly you hear of a brand, right? Now you might go to Amazon and search that brand specifically when you're looking to buy a dog leash. So the difference is in the intent. And the truth is, you'll usually have a better ROI on Amazon because there's intent based. But TikTok is a part of the funnel because we live in a world where oftentimes customers need to interact with your brand 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they actually buy the product.
Hmm.
And in regards to Walmart, at the end of the day, that's usually a lower priced item. And I would say for larger clients of ours, we can get up to, let's say, 30% of sales on Walmart that we're getting on Amazon. For a brand that's doing $100 million, Walmart can get up to 30 million. It's not really going to get past that because there's less traffic there. If you're just starting out and you're doing $10,000 a month, the whole point of basically getting on Walmart to add $3,000 of revenue, that's not necessarily the recommendation we would make because ideally we just take your Amazon to doing 100K a month if the market has that demand.
So again, goes back to that first comment you made. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Let's do the analysis. Let's run some numbers. Let's take some averages of, okay, cool. We've taken of all the clients that we've taken from purely selling on Amazon to adding maybe a TikTok shop to adding a Walmart channel to adding a Target maybe marketplace channel. Here's incrementally, here's the kind of ad that we traditionally see from an incrementality perspective. Does that make sense to you? Does it feel worth it to you? Does the extra hassle, cost, inventory splitting, does that all feel like it makes sense to you? Also, when we're thinking about fulfillment, logistics, etc., for Amazon, it's a pretty clear thing. You're saying you got to do FBA because obviously the more money Amazon makes off of your total account engagement with them, the better off you're going to be in their eyes, which makes sense. So obviously the more business you can give them, PPC, success fees, FBA fees, basically the more fees you can give them, the better relationship you're going to have with Amazon. That's a fact, as it is with most companies that want to sell you something. When we look at the logistics and fulfillment around TikTok Shop and around Walmart, how does that equation change on those channels?
So there's a lot of ways to do it. TikTok Shop is so in its infancy that it doesn't have the same level of maturity of Amazon that up until 3 months ago, I would have said, don't actually do your warehousing with TikTok Shop because it's a complete mess and nightmare.
Yes.
It's the Wild West with TikTok where things are changing on a very regular basis. But the latest news is that long term, you're going to have to actually have all your inventory in TikTok Shop in order to sell on their platform.
Wow.
We'll see if that is accurate or not accurate. But for the most part, what we've been doing up until now is utilizing a third party platform such as like Aftership,
Sure.
where essentially on TikTok and on Walmart, you can send out your inventory straight from Amazon,
Yep.
right? So you're basically using your Amazon FBA inventory in order to ship it, which I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talk about doing from their D2C store as well.
Yes. And do you find that ends up being the best value for the merchant in the sense that, hey, look, let Amazon effectively be our multi-channel fulfillment partner?
Yeah, I would say so. One, it will help with your organic visibility on Amazon. But even more than that, at this moment in time, Walmart and TikTok don't have the same, I can't think of a better word of saying it, but like punishment
Mhm.
of diminishing your
Visibility,
visibility organically
rankings, yeah.
if you're not utilizing their warehousing. Because the truth is, they wouldn't be able to suddenly just meet the demand of all of their sellers suddenly jumping on the platform.
Okay, makes sense, makes sense. And what do you think that there is going to be a credible alternative to Amazon for most merchants that is as universally accepted and is across as many categories as Amazon? Do you see anybody threatening Amazon's marketplace dominance anytime soon?
Walmart has been doing their best to try and do it for God knows how long. There's other marketplaces out there, more like Asian marketplaces like Temu. I might even be pronouncing it incorrectly. But do I see them taking over Amazon? No. I would say as time goes on, it's very clear that Amazon continually has more and more of a monopoly. And if Walmart, who has incredibly deep pockets, more so than 99% of companies, hasn't been able to outpace Amazon, if I was able to predict the future, I don't even know if I'd be in this business. I'd probably be trading stocks all day, but I would say probably not.
And what are the top 3 issues when you do an audit on a customer's account? They come to you for the first time. You're in that first 90-day honeymoon phase where you're doing the analysis, you're getting to know them, you're getting deep into their account. What are the top 3 issues that you just find over and over again that merchants are just chronically screwing up in their Amazon account?
I think a handful of things. I think one, not actually having a listing that has a good click through rate and conversion rate and just dumping money behind it and then blaming an ad agency that they're not doing a good job. I think at the end of the day, there's a hyper focus on advertising when then that's one small piece of the equation. So said simply, it's not looked at as an ecosystem. They're just looking at one of the variables. I would say that's probably problem number one. Number two, Amazon is really viewed as, oh, it's going to be passive income, right? People are like, I want to launch on Amazon and I'm looking to make money as quickly as humanly possible. Those days are gone, right? If you launched on Amazon 12 years ago, you could be profitable within a month. Now, the more potential market demand in a category, the longer it's going to take to even get to break even. So we tell a lot of our clients, if you're looking to launch, what's your runway of money? Do you have 7 months of money where if it takes 7 months to a year to break even, like that's okay for you? And I think that we live in a world with instant gratification where people want to see an ROI tomorrow, which is a beautiful philosophy. I think when you plan quarter by quarter, year by year, you end up getting way far ahead. And I would say the last one is the set it and forget it model, where you're basically just uploading things to Amazon. You're not making a data driven decision, but you're just like, let me do it as quick as humanly possible. And even if you do see some success, not changing it with time, right? Because eventually your competition will get ahead of you and they're going to make changes to their listings in order to convert better than you, and you will fall behind. So, in the conversation that you said before of maybe a brand will just get rid of their agency in order to save $10,000 a month. I can't count the amount of times we've had a brand that's left us and then 6 months, a year later, come back asking to work together because everything fell apart.
That makes sense. And to your point about using data-driven decision making for each individual channel on its own merits, I think that's such a key point because a lot of people, they'll plug in, for example, the out of the box Shopify Amazon connector. They'll push their catalog into Amazon, same images, same description, same attributes, same absolutely everything because it's easiest, right? They don't want to necessarily customize anything around product data for Amazon, right? But for the brands that have the PIM system and they can slice and dice data multiple different ways by channel, they oftentimes see outsized success because now, instead of having the exact same data structured in the exact same way as our Shopify store, Amazon, TikTok, and any other marketplace I integrate with, now I can tailor the data feed for that marketplace. And I can actually create additional and new structured data that is appropriate for that marketplace and mapped to the set of attributes that they have in their system. And I can, for example, I may want to, and I've seen this myself in my own buying habits. I know that when the images on Amazon have statistics, measurements, overlays, data, and detail embedded in the image, that it helps me to make a faster, easier buying decision than trying to scroll down like the 3 different areas on a PDP on Amazon where they have the information, view more, and then jumps you down, but beneath the panel of where the product recommendation is and everything else. Like seeing the
What's
most important information about a product in the image carousel itself is feels to me like a massive missed opportunity if you're just shuffling over and mapping the same images from your Shopify store into Amazon without doing any customization of those images. Feels like a massive missed opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. One, couldn't have said it better myself. I love the passion that you were exuding. And in regards to actually putting the text on the image, not only does it make it easier for the consumer to get a higher conversion rate, but even more than that's the new world of SEO these days, right? It used to be let's keyword stuff, our titles, our bullet points. Now Amazon is scraping every single image and they're basically reading every single word in every single image and they're getting an understanding of your semantics in order to figure out, do we want to index you on Rufus, on Cosmo? And when people are actually searching on Amazon, how likely are you to actually index? That makes a massive difference.
And do you think that I know famously, I read a Reuters article probably 2 years ago now, maybe even longer. I remember reading an article that it wasn't an Amazon article, but it was an interview that a reporter had done with Amazon about Amazon business, the B2B aspect of what they're doing. And they were talking about Europe specifically. And they said, look, we are actually actively in certain markets, i.e., Europe, we are actively pursuing more merchants to get onto our platform to supply B2B products. So businesses selling to businesses as opposed to businesses selling to end consumers, because we currently have more demand on our platform for business purchases than we can service. Meaning we've got categories that we simply can't service because we don't have enough merchants to sell products in those categories. And at scale, because oftentimes for B2B, instead of selling individual items, we're now selling cartons, pallets, and containers of stuff to businesses. And so, do you think that the growth opportunity moving forward, not only for you as an agency, but Amazon, the platform, and other marketplaces, do you think the opportunity is just as great or greater for B2B marketplace sales as B2C or D2C marketplace sales?
I wouldn't look at it that way as in what's a better opportunity. I think once again, it's a flywheel effect and both are crucial, right? The more businesses that are buying your product, the more consumers that now suddenly are going to be aware of your product and the more consumers that are going to start searching for your brands. In my mind, it's not a question of which one is more important. I would say on Amazon, ideally, you want to use every lever that you can. And therefore, both are important parts of the equation.
And what do you make of the regular Amazon purges? I've had clients that were selling via Vendor Central to Amazon, and then
Yep.
without any warning, without any notice whatsoever, they couldn't get into their
Kicked off.
Vendor Central account, and Amazon didn't even tell them, "Hey, we're going to stop buying off you." They just got cut off, and then they had to basically jump through hoops to start and to get their Seller Central account set up and to start selling 3P instead of 1P now. They had to really change quite a lot about how they integrate with Amazon to be able to make that happen and be able to set their pricing thresholds and all this sort of stuff. And it really is very disruptive to their business. And why do you think Amazon does that way? Like, if they're going to cut someone off as a 1P vendor, why don't they at least communicate with them in advance and say, look, 30 days from now, you're no longer going to be a 1P seller. So get yourself ready because you should become a 3P seller instead. I just feel, and I understand, Jeff Bezos made it very clear many years ago that they don't give a shit about sellers. They give a shit about the end customer, and that is their total focus. So I get that. But it just seems that some of the behaviors by Amazon are so disrespectful to sellers and so rude. Like, this one brand was selling 1P to Amazon for like 5 years, and then they got cut off with no notice. So it just seems to me that Amazon just really does. They almost have disdain for sellers versus the consumer.
I think that it's such a massive corporation with so much bureaucracy. And on top of that, there things that fall through the cracks, right? Like they're hyper focused on consumers and therefore they have built their business around let's be as mindful as humanly possible on anything that revolves around the actual customer. For sellers, I don't think it comes from a place of intentionally no, I don't think it comes from malice. There are millions of people that have received an email in the past year and a half basically saying, "Hey, in the next 60 days you're going to be kicked off 1P and you'll have to sell in 3P." I think that they're working at such massive volumes that, as crazy as it sounds, yeah, 10,000 sellers ended up slipping through the cracks. And it's okay, that's a minority of the million that got kicked off.
Okay. And why do you think that they do that? Do you think that it's purely data driven, meaning, okay, cool, of these 1P sellers, here's the volumes that they do, here's the margins that we make on their products versus our buy price versus our sell price, here's the categories that we don't dominate in, or now we all of a sudden have enough 3P sellers in a given category that we don't need to sell 1P anymore, or we've got so much competition in 3P that we don't want to sell 1P anymore because we can't undercut everybody. What do you think goes into their decision making process around when to do 1P business versus 3P business?
When you're in a 1P business as Amazon, you're taking on most of the risk,
Yes.
right? You're basically making forecasts into this is how much inventory that we think we're going to sell. And now we have a lot of capital that's tied up into inventory, which you can't use,
Yes.
right? Now it's a waiting game. There's going to be a lot of inventory that we made a bad calculation on, and there's going to be world events such as tariffs that change consumer buying behaviors. And then Amazon is sat with the inventory, as opposed to for 3P, they don't take on that liability. That's on the consumer. But
Mm-hmm.
I think long term, Amazon will probably still do 1P for brands like Skechers, Apple, Samsung, because these are brands that essentially they want to have on their platform to make sure that everyone goes to Amazon to buy. But I think long term, they're going to keep cutting the small, and I do in air quotes, ma and paws that are only doing 50 to $100 million a year. And slowly but surely, they're only going to have the Goliath be 1P.
That makes total sense. That makes absolute sense. And look, I know this is, I've asked you a lot of questions that required a lot of crystal ball gazing by you, but obviously you got a lot of experience. So I might as well ask these kind of dumb questions that maybe nobody else has asked you. What's next for you guys? When you think about the next 12, 24, 36 months, is it, do you see some things coming down the line with AI and Amazon? Do you see some things coming down the line in terms of new categories that you'll have to get schooled up in? Do you see new marketplaces that you guys are going to have to become experts in? Like, when you think about the growth of your business over the next 12, 24, 36 months, or are there already things today that you don't do yet that your customers are asking you to do that you say, we don't do that now, but talk to us in 6 months, we will be. Where do you think your growth is going to come from as an agency? Okay, let's just look out maybe 18 months, because anything beyond that's probably a crapshoot.
Yeah, great question. I think at the end of the day, if you're not looking at agentic AI, you're going to fall behind. So, really, what we're looking at this moment in time is building out enterprise offerings of essentially doing things at scale that weren't possible before. If you look at brands like Nike, Adidas, Skechers, for all of them, they just have shoes on a white background. They don't have any text in the and all of their product descriptions, a lot of them come from what you were describing of is just basically pushed from their D2C website
Yep.
because to go through 100,000 different SKUs and make sure that it's set up properly, it's not possible.
Yes.
Right? Now we're in a world where, you know, if you're ahead of the curve, you can basically create structures in place with AI in order to ensure that, hey, we are updating 20,000 ASINs from a SEO perspective on a monthly basis. Are we able to do that today? No. Are we going to be able to do that in 18 months from now? 100%.
Yeah.
That's something that we've already rolled out when it comes to creatives, being able to roll out 3,000 new creatives for 3,000 different ASINs in a short time period, but really honing in on that service offering and continuing to make it better and better for enterprise clients.
I love that. If you could sprinkle fairy dust on the marketplace industry and change one thing about it at the snap of your fingers, what would it be?
Oh, that's tough, man. What would I change? I think to all the sellers out there, I would make it so that Amazon changed their cut from 30% to 15%.
Yep. Yep. It would
I think that would help a
democratize
lot of
access to
people.
Amazon for a lot more brands.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. That's a very reasonable request. I don't know if Andy Jassy would agree, but let's put it out there into the universe. No, I love
So
that. I love
good.
that. And what's the best way to get a hold of you? I'll drop a link to your LinkedIn profile and your website in the show notes. But other than that, how do you like people to reach out to you and have
Yeah, if
conversations about
anyone is
all things
interested,
Amazon and marketplaces in general?
yeah, if you go to amazongrowthlab.com, feel free to schedule a call with one of us and we'd be happy to give your brand a free audit.
I love it. And how do you guys mostly make your money from a pricing model perspective? Is it, oh, hey, we manage these channels and we manage these SKUs, and so therefore we're going to do it on a combination of channel and SKU basis? Is it like a fixed subscription model type of thing? How do you
Yeah,
guys
good
charge your clients?
question. We have monthly retainers, but it's anywhere between charging 4K a month to 15K a month, I would say, are the custom offers.
Yep.
We have clients that are paying 150K a month, but those are custom packages and are not
They're
the
not a
run of the
standard
mill.
offering.
Totally.
I love it. I love it. Making sure that you tailor your services to what the client actually needs in the moment makes total sense. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, we've been together almost an hour now. Mr. Yonah Nimmer, this is where I get to turn the microphone over to you, flip the script, let you ask me one question, any question you like. It could be personal or professional. So, what is your question for me today?
If you could use 3 words to describe the past hour, what would they be?
Fun, engaging, and educational.
I love it.
This was an absolute schooling. Amazon is not an area that I am an expert in by any stretch of the imagination. From a technical perspective and getting people's systems integrated with Amazon, sure, had to do that many times. But in terms of actually understanding what's going on underneath the bonnet with Amazon and how they work, it just feels as an outsider and someone who doesn't work in this space like such a giant black box of how they do everything that it feels like it's almost unknowable. That's what it feels like to me. Amazon is a very intimidating channel, I think, not only for service providers but brands too. Super appreciate your
Well,
time, and yeah,
if you ever have any questions, you have my information. I'm always a call, email, text away and happy to support you.
I love it. You're a legend. Thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to speak to you again soon. Have a great rest of your day. If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason.